All right, so back to the story. Really at the core of everything, I wanted to get basketball videos of when I was younger. So that's why part of the reason why I was posting my stuff was because I wanted people to be amazed by my intelligence and give me basketball videos when I was younger. But again, like I said, stuff backfired. But for instance, so I wanted my grandpa to teach me again. I wrote my Based on True Story book, but it was very liberal. But I thought that my grandpa talking about transcending the self and transcending dualistic software, I thought that that was for race mixing and stuff. And I'll kind of like give one example. Like one thing my grandpa taught me was he said that, I asked him, what does it mean in the Bible where it says, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. And my grandpa said, because I wanted to think that the Christianity was just a trick by the Jews to save the Jews by converting their enemy to a pro-Jewish religion. And I even indicated Jesus only wanted to save the Jews. He didn't even go to the Gentiles. And when Peter gets the dream to go to the Gentiles, it says kill and eat. So I was like, yeah, go to the Gentiles so that you can kill them and eat them, so you can destroy them. And Paul, he has a revelation to go to the Gentiles, but Paul's like, yeah, you guys become Christians, but you give us material resources and we'll give you spiritual wealth. So I was like, it was just a trick. It was just a trick by the Jews to defeat their enemy, the Romans, by converting them to Christianity, which would save them. And I said, even Jesus on the cross, when the Roman centurion looks at Jesus, he's like, I believe, but I was like, that's what saved the Jews, because then the Roman army that wanted to destroy them then wanted to save the Jews. And, that was representative of the Jews taking the blood on themselves. That was a Passover sacrifice that saved them. The blood is supposed to save them from their sins. Because of the sins, the Jews were supposed to be killed, but then they were saved by the sacrifice of Jesus. So it's it was all just a trick. That's what I wanted to believe. But why did I want to believe that so bad? Because I wanted to destroy Christianity, because I wanted to race mix the white people, because I saw the white people as the biggest threat to the Jews. So, as I was saying, but my grandpa was teaching me when it says, it says, I asked him, what does it mean? It says, he who curses Israel will be cursed, he who blesses Israel will be blessed. Now, a lot of people who hate Jews will be like, well, the Jews are just Khazars, they're not really Israel. But my grandpa, he would say, if you bless anybody, you'll be blessed. If you curse anybody, you'll be cursed. It's because that's dualistic software. Now this is where, so in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, good. So yeah, so therefore we should have open borders and we should have race mixing, because you don't want to be against anybody. But but in my mind, I'm like, yeah, so don't curse anybody and bless everybody. So just open borders and race mixing. But I was actually trying to curse the white people, because I want to destroy the white people by race mixing and give welfare. That's blessing people. No, because I wanted to destroy the white people. So I was actually cursing the white people. Now, I think that my grandpa would say, giving to someone doesn't necessarily help them, but to bless people would be, you could keep them on their side of the border, and you can, help them in other ways and giving them money. But, my agenda was, yeah, give them money. But really my agenda was to destroy the white race, because I saw the white race as the biggest threat to the Jews. So it seemed like I'm compassionate, I'm open-minded, I'm progressive. No, I knew a lot of Jewish hippies and just hippies in general. But really they're just self-indulgent and just anti-white. A lot of the Jewish ones especially. But, so you have to really examine people's intentions to see where they're really at in their level of software, according to my grandpa. But I didn't understand that at the time. So, as I said, I was still for race mixing, but I thought that's the flow. That's the flow. Be for race mixing. Don't be racist. Because if you're racist, that's self-confirmatory. But I didn't realize that being anti-racist is also, being for race mixing is also self-confirmatory. Because I was anti-white, and that was predator prey software toward white people. I wasn't really in the flow. In the flow, you would have pure awareness and you could see the truth. But anyways, but at the time I didn't understand that. So my grandpa's trying to teach me he was teaching me, but like I said, he ended up stopping teaching me because I went to Utah and then my grandma died, but I went to visit my grandpa in Washington and my dad was there, but my dad hid from me. I wanted to see my dad. My grandpa ended up kicking me out. And he told me because my grandma died, he said that the only reason why he taught me was because my grandma was making him teach me. And that's ironic, because my grandpa would be like, you can't change people, Ryan. You can only upgrade your own software and change. But how? Okay, you can't change people. Then how come my grandma was making you teach me then? You motherfucker. Yeah, you can influence people. But no, you can't change people. That's why I was always like, that's just bullshit. all these fucking spiritual ideas. I saw spirituality as white supremacy and just maintaining the status quo. Like, you can't change people. Everything is fine. Da, 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 da. No, but my grandpa would admit too. He would say my mom and dad misinterpreted that as, and they would say, you could say you can't change people in a predatory way. Like my mom, I'd be like, Mom, can I please talk to Dad? You can't change people, Ryan. Can't make things happen. And I'd be like, Mom, can I talk to, I call my mom, Mom, can I talk to Dad? Can I see you guys? Mom would be like, why don't you get a fucking hobby? Why don't you fucking get a life other than wanting to see your mom and dad? There's a lot of people who don't see their mom and dad. You know, get a fucking life. And I'd be like, okay, I do have a life. I discovered the theory of everything. No, you didn't. You haven't done anything since middle school. It's because you started to become mentally ill in middle school. And then she hung up on me. No, I discovered the theory of everything. I wrote amazing raps. I could have been playing basketball, but you guys fucking abandoned me. And you guys are, my mom and dad are stupid, bad parents. If they would have just fucking listened to me, gosh, I discovered the theory of everything. It didn't have to be a disaster. When I discovered the theory of everything, everything didn't have to go spiraling downhill. My mom and dad could have fucking listened to me and had some comprehension, but they don't. They're stupid, so they didn't understand. And they just thought I was mentally ill. And that's a mistake. I discovered the theory of everything. So, the Quadramile is the theory of everything. But anyways, so then, as I said, I really wanted to get basketball videos when I was younger. I ran into, I called Malik. Malik said that his dad had gone crazy. He was on drugs or something. And he said that he had the basketball videos. Originally, Malik said he had them, but then he said his dad had them. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give your dad money if he gives them to me. So he got a hold of his dad. At first, he couldn't get a hold of his dad. Then he got a hold of his dad when I said that I'll give him money. But then his dad needed a place to stay because he was on the run from, like, the police. And he was on the run from a lot of people. And he was acting really crazy. And he was talking about P. Diddy. He was P. Diddy's bodyguard, which is true. But he was P. Diddy's bodyguard, and P. Diddy's a molester and killed his ex-wife. And he's telling me all this crazy stuff, but he's telling me that Pat Barrett, who was a SCA coach, was a child molester, and he's telling me all this stuff, and he has a restraining order against Pat Barrett at this point, and he's going crazy. But, basically, I let him stay with me because my friend Bill was like, yeah, let him stay with you and get the money and then pay him. So I told my mom, I need to get a job so that I can pay Kenny some money so I can get the basketball videos. So my mom was like, she got me a job working in an Amazon warehouse. But I'm like, Mom, I don't need to work at night. I'm like, Mom, I don't need to work in a warehouse at night. I'm a normal person. You can get me a normal job. But my mom was like, no, you're not. You're schizophrenic. You can't get a normal job. You need to be in a warehouse at night. Because my mom is stupid. She hasn't seen me for 20 years. So my mom really assumes that I'm just a crazy schizophrenic, crazy lunatic. So she thinks that the only job that I can get is working at a warehouse at night. So, but anyways, but I was willing to do it for a little bit so I can get the money to pay Kenny to get my basketball videos. But then, like I said, Kenny was acting way too crazy. He was being disrespectful to me. And like I said, he asked me, he was like, Ryan, what's up with your dad? How come your dad won't talk to you? Because, as I said, growing up, my dad did everything with me. He shot with me every day. He went to every one of my tournaments. Me and my dad were best friends. My dad loved me. But it was after the shoot away. So I tried to explain to Kenny about the shoot away machine. And Kenny was like, no, it wasn't the shoot away, Ryan. He said the shoot away wouldn't mess up your shot. And I showed Kenny how my dad told me to do the wrong thing, how the shoot away made me put my feet wrong. And then my dad told me to do the wrong thing. And then Kenny was like, okay, maybe. And then Kenny talked to my dad on the phone. And my dad said that he was not going to ever talk to me. But he said that he did think that it's possible that the shoot away messed up my shot. But my dad told Kenny that he thought that I had schizophrenia because my dad really does think I have schizophrenia. He thinks that Quadramile is schizophrenia. No, I discovered the theory of everything. So Kenny also thought I had schizophrenia, and then Kenny had this white girlfriend who was his sister's friend. And they went to the Ralphs, and some people were saying things about a black guy being with a white woman and everything. But they're all like, oh, boo-hoo. They're both really crazy. But I was for race mixing at the time, and I didn't like white people. So I looked at her and I was like, I don't like you. I'm glad that the black guy's race mixing with you because I didn't like white people because I saw myself as Jewish and I saw white people as the biggest threat. So but basically. But this woman was a bitch to me because, she thought I had schizophrenia too. She didn't know about the Quadramodel. So then, Kenny was being too ridiculous. But like I said, at first he said that he had the basketball videos, but then he was telling me, oh, I don't have those ARC basketball videos. So I was like, dude, you know, I'm having you stay with me so that you can give me the basketball videos. And then he was going to change the lock on my door, and he was acting crazy. And I was like, he's going to try to steal my apartment. So I you know, but he was like, he was being acting really too crazy. So and he told me, I don't have the ARC videos. So and in my mind, I was thinking maybe he doesn't want to give me the videos because he doesn't want people to see how good I was, you know? So I told him, like, so I went back to my apartment. I told him, dude, you're not going to be allowed back in my apartment until you get the videos, because the whole deal is that I get the basketball videos. And then his white girlfriend called me, and she's like, Ryan, you know, you need to let us in the apartment. You know, you have a mental illness. And I was like, you know, shut the fuck up, bitch. And then they tried to come, and then Kenny tries to break in the apartment. They got the police, but then the police were there, and then the police came in, and the white woman was like, you know, he has schizophrenia. And I saw my neighbor has a doorbell camera, and on the doorbell camera they called my mom and dad, and they were like, and the lady was like, and my dad was like, Paul, Ryan won't let me in the place. And then the white woman's like, thank you, Paul, thank you for helping us. That's my dad, because my dad told them that I had schizophrenia, so they think I have schizophrenia, so they think they can mistreat me. So then when they're in my place, you know, the police saw this woman. The woman's like, he has schizophrenia and we're trying to help him. And I'm like, no, they're not trying to help me. They're taking advantage of me. You know, I just want to get my basketball videos. So then the police ended up kicking them out. And then one of the police, it was a female police officer. She was like, if he has schizophrenia, then why are you guys treating him like this? And I was like, exactly, you fucking assholes. This is the problem. Nobody would have thought I had schizophrenia unless my stupid mom and dad were saying this shit. But I don't have schizophrenia. The doctor said so. So why is my stupid mom and dad trying to say I have schizophrenia? Why can't they just fucking, if they would just listen to me and talk to me? But they're causing more harm than good. They should, you know, they haven't talked to me for 20 years, but they're just assuming I have schizophrenia. If I had schizophrenia, then you should talk to me. It shouldn't be an excuse to not talk to me. If I have schizophrenia, then that would mean that you need to give me more help. You should talk to me and see me. But anyway, so then I ended up kicking Kenny out. And then Kenny tried to break into my place, and then he ended up breaking into my place and taking a lot of my stuff. And then that was when I met. So then I left my place for a little bit, and I was staying basically in my car. And then that's when I met my ex-girlfriend, who ended up having an abortion of my baby. So I'll just call her my ex-girlfriend. But like I said, you know, my grandpa always taught me. He would say, you know, never compliment people, because if you compliment people, then you're confirming that they're a separate self, but there is no self. So never tell someone like you're beautiful or you're amazing, because that's confirming the illusion of separate selves. Instead, you know, just celebrate. Like if someone's doing amazing, be like, wow, you're really you're really working hard, or you're really, you know, that was an amazing shot, or that was an amazing essay that you wrote, or that was an amazing essay, but you don't want to confirm the illusion of a separate self. But my friend Bill was like, dude, your grandpa makes you into a retard, Ryan. Like, he makes you into a douchebag. Don't listen to your fucking grandpas. Just be normal. If you ever see a girl and she's pretty, just tell her, hey, you're beautiful. So I saw my ex-girlfriend, and I walked up to her and I said, hey, you're beautiful. And because she was beautiful. I thought she was beautiful. I really liked her. And then she said, she was like, oh, thank you. And I was like, are you going on a date or something? And she said, yeah, she was going on a date. So I was like, oh, can I get your number? And she was like, oh, I'll get your number. So I gave her my number. And then she ended up calling me later that week. And I remember when she was calling me, I was getting locks for my windows so that Kenny couldn't break into my apartment anymore. But, you know, like I said, I had the most swag flow out of anybody. Like, I was playing with Drew Holiday, Brandon Jennings, DeMar DeRozan, all those guys. I had the most. I was an amazing basketball player. And everybody got their swag flow from me, if anybody had it. But I want to get basketball videos of when I was younger. But anyways, so then I met my ex-girlfriend, and but then like I said, you know, in my mind I was still anti-religious, and I was anti-white, and so, you know, I was probably, you know, I was still in that kind of state. I was still seeing things through the Darwinian lens, because why did I want to see things through a Darwinian lens? Because it was anti-religious, and I wanted to see religion as just an epiphenomena of Darwinism, and I wanted to see things through the Marxist perspective, because I was anti-religious, anti-spiritual, because I saw religion as white supremacy, and I saw myself as Jewish. So, and I thought that, you know, religion maintained the white race, and spirituality maintained the white race, and I wanted to dissolve the white race. I wanted race-mixing Marxism. So basically, but I met my girlfriend. In my mind, I still wanted to just have a baby, because I'm thinking in Darwinian sense. I want to be superior. So I ignored the red flags. My ex-girlfriend tells me that she had done drugs, that she had done crack before, but she was really cool. Other than this, like I liked her. She was really cool. Other than this, and she seemed like, but she had a daughter. She said that she'd kind of changed, but not completely. But I would later find out that she didn't really change because, but I'll get to that. But she had a daughter. And she had gotten a lot better, but she was a drug addict and stuff. And so if I was in discernment, if I was in the flow, I wouldn't try to have a baby with her. And then I ended up going to her place, and I saw that she had a daughter, and her daughter was half El Salvadorian, so she had a mixed daughter, and she was a single mom. So again, if I was in the flow, I would discern this isn't a good situation. I shouldn't have a baby with this girl. But again, I wasn't in the flow. And also, think about it. I'm abandoned by my family. I'm trying to talk to my mom and dad. They won't talk to me. But I don't want to make excuses. But my grandpa would say my software wasn't upgraded. I still saw things through a Darwinian lens. I still wanted to be superior by having a baby. And I wasn't thinking, and I didn't have clear discernment. I wasn't in the flow. I didn't think about, the broader implications, and having a baby while you're married is more healthy and more harmonious, and I wasn't in the flow. So basically, I tried to get her pregnant, and we both wanted to have a baby. So, I ended up getting her pregnant, but then she ended up having an abortion, but I'll get to that in the next lecture.